I'd have a hard time doing that. But those are two that I think come to mind as among our greatest presidents. Yes.
We throw out a theory and get your response to it. It seems to me many of the problems that you have described today are actually symptoms of a much deeper problem in the country at the moment, and that is that so many citizens do not really seem to understand the Constitution. They don't seem to understand what freedom means, and that there seems to be a sense that if someone does something I disagree with, somehow I should have power to deal with them or stop them. And do you see that? And if so, what is the solution to that? Because seems to me a bad prescription for
Well, obviously in the Constitution, the solution is education, and I'm appalled when I see the number of colleges and universities that no longer offer courses in American history.
Yeah.
What are we doing? I think you're right. I mean, the mindset now is if somebody opposes my views, they're a deadly enemy. We can't compromise, we can't talk, we can't deal with each other, we can't get along anyway. And the Constitution was in itself a compromise. The Electoral College that's going to be rigged against Trump was a compromise. Most of what holds us together was done by compromise. And, you know, that's a lost art. And we need to regain it. Or, you know, I don't know how much longer this country is going to have the system that it has. Yes.
You mentioned the blurring in the news that had occurred since you started your career, or more recently, between commentary and objective news or events. At least I think that's what you're saying. And it seems to me like, you know, maybe there's slamming in the news, with some slamming happening in the Democratic Party, but just outright propaganda in some of the news programs that favor the Republicans. You know, like Fox News, for example. And I'm wondering how much of the equivalency, as far as, or make possibly near equivalency, it's hard to understand, between the unpopularity of the two current candidates has been created by the really strong slamming, especially on some of the programs that really promote Republican viewpoints.
Well, I think anybody who's got all their information from Fox News feel that Hillary Clinton was worse than Adolf Hitler. Again, they have some people I respect who report news for them, but they have a stable of commentators who are not bound by any standards that I could ever respect. And you know, there's a big debate in the business, in journalism now, about false equivalency. If one side lies and the other side, you know,
Isn't open.
is strays slightly, which is what we're used to. You don't call one guy the liar and the other candidate the strayer. You just do this false equivalency thing. We'll be balanced if we put them both in. I once wrote, I don't know if I mentioned this, that the balance between a truth and a lie is still a lie. And we're hearing a lot of lies in the name of false balance, right? This young lady here has been trying to get my attention for the longest 3 years, I think.
we're gonna take this last question, and then I wanted to ask a question, and we'll let him, speak with everyone afterwards.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna ask which was the most interesting story you've ever covered at all in public videos.
All my campaigns, the most interesting and tragic was 1968. It was fascinating from day one. I covered Senator Eugene McCarthy in New Hampshire when he was getting started. As Martha mentioned, I told Gene that Lyndon Johnson had quit. I was covering a speech he was making outside of Milwaukee. And I'd already heard it, so I watched television while Johnson spoke. And Johnson said at the end of his Vietnam speech that he would not seek or accept the nomination. And I went in and tried to get McCarthy's attention and waved at him, and he waved me off. So finally I just walked up on the stage and told him what had happened. And he told the audience what had happened, and they all went, wow, because it was a college crowd and they all hated Johnson's guts. Well, they were all going to get drafted pretty soon. And most of them did anyhow, because Nixon's secret plan to end the war in Vietnam took until 1975 when he wasn't president anymore. But 68 was by far the most fascinating presidential campaign of all those I covered. I was in Chicago. I can still remember the tear gas in the Conrad Hilton Hotel during the riots in Chicago. I traveled a lot with Nixon, and I knew Haldeman and Ehrlichman and all those guys, and watched their arrogance and their panic when it suddenly looked like Hubert Humphrey was going to break with Johnson and say, I will sue for peace in Vietnam. They were terrified. So 68 by far was the most interesting. There are a bunch of books, one of them called 1968. One of my friends of mine. But it's worth looking at one of them because it was a fascinating year.
Okay, I want to ask one question. You know it's going to be about the 60s.
Okay.
I want to ask, could you, this is a little bit of a complex question, could you talk a little bit about the impact of assassination on the presidential campaigns? I know you had said in the video that I watched that Barry Goldwater was a reluctant candidate because there would have been 4 presidents within 4 years after Kennedy was assassinated. And could you, especially with the 68 campaign, could you talk about the impact of Martin Luther King's assassination and Bobby's? And I mean, do you think Bobby would have won? I mean, how do you think things would have panned out?
My guess is that in the end Humphrey would have won that nomination. I think he had the establishment, and he had the delegates, even though he entered no primaries. You know, that's pure guesswork. The biggest change brought by the assassinations was when Johnson ordered in 1968, after Bobby was shot, that the Secret Service protect presidential nominees, which had never been done up until then. It wasn't just the protection. It is that the Secret Service involvement all of a sudden brought a rigor and an order to those campaigns that many of them would have never approached without the Secret Service having been there. They mapped routes. They said who was supposed to be here and who wasn't. They became a big force in shaping, particularly in those early experiences, the way campaigns were organized and run. Even though they weren't campaign organizers, they made the motorcades run on time. And I was a big favorite of a lot of those people who didn't know what they were doing. It's become such an accepted part of the process now that the change just flowed into the system, and it's still there. But Secret Service is by law not supposed to be helping, assisting the campaign. But in fact, by being there and by doing what they have to do if they're gonna protect an individual, they do influence the campaigns.
Were you there at the ambassador when he was shot?
I was in the, no, I was not. I was staying there, but I had gone into the AP Bureau a couple of miles away to write the running story of the election, which he won, but I was not at the hotel when he was shot. I did cover the story then, you know, at the hospital and at the Bureau.
Tell them what write the running means, because people might not know what
Oh.
running means.
And the AP system is that you start with a story, and then as developments happen, you write another story, and that becomes a new lead, basically. The new story goes on top of the old, and that's running, that's keeping up with events. And that's what I was doing when that happened, and then I continued to do that for the next 30 hours, basically. And the story became what was happening at the hospital and whether Bobby would ever die. It was in the middle of the night when I had gone back. I hadn't slept in 24 hours or more, and I'd gone back to the hotel and had just gone to sleep when the phone rang from the bureau, and they said, "You better come in. Frank McElwood says there's going to be a briefing in an hour at the hospital," and you know what that meant.
So you were there when he announced he had died?
No, I went back to the office and it wrote the story basically because we knew that meant that Bobby had died.
I want to thank everyone so much for coming, and this has been a real treat and a real gift. Want everyone to give a nice round warm.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. You always